Read me. If this video made something stir inside you, if some part of what I described felt uncomfortably familiar, I want you to know that you are not alone. And the fact that you are here watching this, trying to understand yourself a little better, that already takes courage. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you someone who never complains? When was the last time you let someone actually see how you were feeling? I read every comment, every single one. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for a person who never asks for anything is simply let them know you see them. Subscribe to Easy Mind for more videos like this every week. And I'll see you in the next one. Read me, think about the person in your life who never complains. The one who shows up no matter what, who says I'm fine when you ask how they're doing. Who handles every problem quietly, without ever making it anyone else's burden. Who smiles through things that would make most people break down. You probably admire that person, maybe you even wish you were more like them. But what if I told you that behind that silence, behind that endless patience and that unshakable calm, there is a psychology most people never see? What if the person who never complains is carrying something far heavier than anyone around them realizes? Today we're going inside the mind of someone who never complains, not to judge them, not to fix them, but to finally understand what is really going on beneath the surface. Welcome to Easy Mind, where we explore the hidden psychology behind the way people think, feel, and behave. If you've ever been told you're so strong while quietly falling apart inside, if you've ever swallowed your pain because you didn't want to be a burden, if you've ever wondered why asking for help feels almost impossible, this video was made for you. Let's start at the beginning. Where does this pattern come from? Nobody is born refusing to complain, it is learned, and in most cases it is learned very early. Psychologists who study attachment theory, the science of how our earliest relationships shape our personalities, have found that children who grow up in environments where their emotional needs are consistently dismissed, minimized, or punished tend to develop what is called an avoidant attachment style. What does that mean in simple terms? It means the child learned at a very young age that expressing needs does not lead to comfort. It leads to rejection or criticism or being told to toughen up. Or simply being ignored, so the child adapts, they stop asking, they stop expressing. They learn to handle everything internally because the outside world taught them that their feelings were inconvenient. And here is the part that makes this so painful, that adaptation works. At least in the short term, the child gets praised for being mature, for being easy. For not making a fuss, the silence gets rewarded, and so the silence becomes a personality. By the time that child becomes an adult, they don't even recognize it as a coping mechanism anymore. It just feels like who they are. I'm just not the type to complain. I don't like drama. Other people have it worse. These are not character traits. They are survival strategies that were never updated. Now here is something that might surprise you. The person who never complains is not emotionally numb. They are not indifferent to pain. In fact, research consistently shows the opposite. People who suppress emotional expression tend to experience emotions more intensely than average, not less. A landmark study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that emotional suppression does not reduce the internal experience of an emotion. It only hides the external expression. The feeling is still there, all of it. The person has simply become an expert at making sure nobody else can see it. Think about what that means. Every frustration, every disappointment, every moment of loneliness or exhaustion, it is all being felt, processed internally and then buried. Over and over again for years, psychologists call this emotional labor. And like any form of labor, it is exhausting. The person who never complains is not resting. They are working harder than anyone around them, on the inside, every single day. And the cost of that labor is very real. Studies from Harvard Medical School have shown that chronic emotional suppression is linked to significantly higher rates of cardiovascular disease, weakened immune function, chronic fatigue, and burnout. The body keeps score even when the mind refuses to speak. Read me. There is also a deep psychological toll. People who habitually suppress their needs tend to struggle with something called self-abandonment, a pattern where they consistently prioritize everyone else's comfort over their own well-being. Not out of generosity, but out of a deeply held belief that their needs simply do not matter as much. This is not selflessness, this is self-erasure. And it often goes completely unnoticed by the people around them, because the person who never complains is, by design, invisible in their suffering. Here is where it gets even more complex. The person who never complains is often the person everyone else leans on. They become the listener, the fixer, the stable one, the rock. And they take on that role willingly, because helping others is one of the few socially acceptable ways they can feel connected and needed without having to be vulnerable themselves. Psychologists call this the helper identity. It is extremely common among people who grew up feeling emotionally unsafe. If I cannot ask for love directly, I will earn it by being useful. If I cannot show weakness, I will make myself indispensable. The helper identity is not a bad thing in itself. These people are often deeply compassionate, fiercely loyal, and genuinely gifted at supporting others. But there is a hidden cost. When your entire sense of worth is tied to being strong for others, the idea of being weak, even for a moment, feels catastrophic. Asking for help feels like a confession of failure. Breaking down feels like a betrayal of the identity that has kept you safe your whole life. And so they keep going, long past the point of exhaustion. Long past the point where anyone else would have stopped. There is something else happening underneath all of this that is rarely talked about. Many people who never complain are not just suppressing emotions. They are living with a quiet but constant fear, the fear that if they showed their real pain, the people around them would leave. This fear is not irrational. For many of them, it is based on real experiences. They were left or dismissed or criticized when they were vulnerable. Their nervous system learned the lesson well: emotions push people away. Silence keeps them close, so they make themselves easy to love by making themselves impossible to worry about. The tragedy is that this strategy, while understandable, often produces the exact outcome it was designed to prevent. The people around them never truly know them. Relationships stay on the surface. Intimacy remains out of reach. And beneath all the strength and the smiling and the "I'm fine," there is a deep and quiet loneliness that never fully goes away. Dr. Brené Brown, whose research on vulnerability has reached millions of people, describes this as the paradox of armor. The very thing we use to protect ourselves from pain becomes the wall that keeps out connection. You cannot selectively numb. When you armor yourself against vulnerability, you also armor yourself against love. So what is the path forward for someone who has spent a lifetime not complaining? It does not start with a dramatic breakdown or a sudden confession. It starts with something much smaller. It starts with noticing. Noticing when you say "I'm fine" and you are not fine. Noticing when you absorb someone's problem and quietly set your own aside. Noticing the moment you almost asked for something and then didn't. You do not have to change everything at once. You just have to start paying attention to the places where you disappear. Because here is the truth that the person who never complains needs to hear most. Your pain does not have to be the worst pain in the room to be real. Your needs do not have to be perfectly justified before they deserve to be met. And asking for help is not weakness. It is the most honest thing a human being can do. Strength is not silence. Real strength is knowing when to speak.